This podcast is a product of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. If you or someone you know is looking for a qualified collaborative professional, please visit www.collaborativepracticeflorida.com and the Find Help button to locate a trained collaborative professional in your community. Thank you. Today, we're here with some of the members of the Palm Beach Academy Collaborative Professional Group. We're a practice group, and I invited them today so we could talk about what a practice group does in the collaborative process. We're here with the president of PBACP, Tami Augen, Rhodes and Rick Rhodes. Yes, they are married, not brother and sister. And Rick is a financial neutral. So let's talk about what is a practice group and what does a practice group do? Tami, can you start us off by explaining what a practice group is?
Sure. First of all, Catherine, thank you so much for asking us to do this. We really appreciate it, and we're huge proponents of the collaborative process and supporters of FACP. So FACP is the statewide organization, and a practice group is any group of local individuals who want to form together to make a group and just what it says, practice together, learn together, educate each other, and share in thoughts and ideas. So in Palm Beach County, we've got a practice group in the south part of the county, and we didn't really have anything in the mid and northern part of the county, which is where I practice. So we decided to bring a practice group to this area so that we could share the collaborative message, learn from each other, and really get to know each other and ultimately work together as professional teams.
Tami, you're the one that started PBACP. Can you please share with us why you started it? What was the moment in your practice as an attorney that you said, this is what I want to do, and you got it rolling? You checked out the website, you started the group, and you are the president and you lead us. So what happened? Why?
Well, that's a great question. So the why is because the last place that families belong is in the family court. And there's a movement where things have to be done differently. You have to look for alternative ways of resolving matters. And there's been this slow rolling simmer, and nothing was really getting off the ground in our area of the county, Palm Beach County. And people had tried to come together and it just wasn't happening. And I was extremely, extremely excited about the collaborative movement. I've always tried to do things cooperatively. And once I learned about this word collaborative and the collaborative law movement, I knew that this was it. And it had to be brought here, and other people had to join in this process. So once nothing was really getting off the ground from other mechanisms, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I went on the computer and I thought of the name, and I immediately registered that name with the state of Florida. I got the website. I obviously had Rick right in the room, so was able to ask him to join the organization, and got you on the phone based on our 20 years of experience together and a great friendship and being colleagues. And I knew that you were very, very interested in this and had been wanting to do something in this area. And we said, let's go ahead and get this done, because something has to be done. And we have getting people more and more excited from the moment we created this.
We just buffered a little bit. So just to recap, Tami, you were saying you knew you had to get our practice group started and you were very excited about it. Rick, talk to me about what a financial neutral does. What is your role as a professional in the collaborative group and in the collaborative process?
But
And he's having a little bit of trouble, so maybe we'll.
I have a feeling we're on a shared connection. So what's happening is we're buffering it, so using a lot of bandwidth. But to your question about what is a financial neutral is the person that hopefully can get their eyes on the documents and the finances of the family that are going through a traumatic time in their process. We all know that even in a collaborative, divorce is not easy for the parties involved. And one of the reasons that families do go through a divorce process is, because they don't have a real grasp on their own financial issues that are going on. We see studies on a regular basis where families go through the divorce process for infidelity, but it seems like financial issues are probably a more problematic issue for families, mainly because they don't understand what's going on. We don't learn finances in school like we do with English or math. So people go throughout their lives without a lot of personal financial planning. And I think that the financial neutral brings to a process some clarity as to what's going on that may be the underlying illness to the family in the first place. So what a financial neutral does is they make sure that the attorneys and the other professionals are aware of what may be going on in the background when it may not be obvious even to the participants of the divorce themselves. And what that does, it allows the professionals to kind of color in their own interpretation of how to help these people through a very emotional and traumatic process.
And you are a neutral in this process. How can you really remain neutral? People are so used to having their own financial person and their own attorney. How can, in the collaborative process, how can you use just one financial? How does that work?
Well, it works a lot better than the litigated process, is the reality. And anyone that's gone through it knows that. When you have battling forensics or financial professionals, it becomes a discovery and disclosure battle in the court system. And it can be long drawn out. It builds antagonism, animosity between the parties, distrust, fear of being taken advantage of. When you have one person as a financial neutral who truly does their job and doesn't take sides, but provides a description, basically a roadmap of these people's financial situation, it hopefully will relieve some of the fears of the parties and creates a transparent process where each participant is going to be heard. A financial professional is going to kind of give some advice, take in the information, share that with the other professionals of the group. The attorneys and the mental health professional typically aren't also financially trained. So the financial neutral has a critical role between both the finances, speaking with the individuals, and then relaying that information back to the other professionals so that they have a better way of doing their jobs.
And what kind of documents do you gather and how do you get them?
Well, typically you're going to gather the same documents that would be required in a litigated case. So the parties still need to be helpful with producing financial affidavits that are realistic, not fanciful documents that are going to have holes poked in them at a trial. This has to be a transparent process where each party could look at the other's financial affidavit and not be surprised by anything on that. You're going to do child support guidelines. You're going to be doing many of the same things in a litigated process, but without the acrimony and cost of having to go through this litigation process. And we can all say that the out-of-court dispute resolution process is absolutely best for families. It reduces the cost, it reduces the fear, the anxiety, and promotes a more healing process after this is all done.
And Tami, what other professionals could or should join a practice group?
Sure. So the core set of professionals consists of attorneys, financial neutrals, and neutral facilitators. And we use that word neutral facilitators purposefully. The prior term that a lot of people used was neutral mental health professional. And a neutral facilitator does so much more than understand the mental and emotional processes that different individuals in the process, in the collaborative process, are going through. In addition to those core professionals, you can have other professionals. Some of those would be things like a child specialist. If there are real children's issues that are a little bit more difficult than a traditional or a standard matter, a child specialist can be brought in. You could have other individuals who assist the process, such as someone who's familiar with mortgages and people who are going through divorce when they have mortgages or need to ultimately obtain a new mortgage. Another person who could be brought in is someone like an appraiser. If you need to appraise a marital home, or if you need to appraise property that a solely owned business may own. Those could be other important people. In addition, there is no limit on who you can bring in to the collaborative process, meaning anybody that will agree to the confidentiality provisions and who would be helpful to the process. For example, Rick discussed being a neutral in the process. However, there could be times and situations when one of the parties, the husband, the wife, the mother, the father, the spouse, may need a little bit of additional assistance. And that person can actually bring in their own financial person. It's someone who would support the party who might have less information, less knowledge, need more hand-holding, etc. And that person doesn't make it litigious or add to any animosity. It's a person that we would welcome into the process to assist the party who needs that extra assistance.
That sounds like there could be a lot of people on the team. So how do you know if you need that many people, and do you really need, what's the whole, from 4 or 5 people to 0 people? What's your opinion as to what's a good fit, and how do you figure that out?
That's really a great question. So you're right. It can get to be, a lot of people, and really it depends on the complexity. But if you think about it, you could have a complex matter that going to trial would cost the parties, well in excess of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. If you have those same issues and professionals involved in the collaborative process, the rule of thumb is you're probably at about 1/3 of the cost of a litigated case. So we now have a statute that's codified here in Florida, and it says in order to participate in the collaborative process, you need 2 parties and 2 attorneys. And that would be a core full team of 4 individuals. And a lot of the professionals and practice groups discuss this at length. And while the 2 attorneys are collaboratively trained and really know each other and can work well together, it doesn't necessarily have the same feel as when you have a neutral involved. So what I would strongly recommend is that any process should have at least the 2 attorneys, the 2 parties, and either a neutral facilitator or a financial neutral. That would be the minimum. If there are not children and there are complex financial issues or any financial issues, maybe your neutral involved would be the neutral financial. If there aren't financial issues, but the main issues have to do with children, parenting plan, time sharing, etc., I would suggest perhaps the neutral facilitator. I do believe that the way it's set up to have the 2 neutral financials and when I say set up, I mean a typical model. I think that's probably the best, but you definitely are not tied to that, and you could do it with that core group of four, but I certainly suggest having the fifth individual as a neutral to help the process.
Catherine, I'd like to just mention a follow-on on that. The success rate of the collaborative process is pretty high. So the collaborative process advocates for having the two legal professionals, the facilitator, and then the financial neutral. And when you have a high success rate like that, it's really tough to argue against using that recipe. It provides for the most ability for the professionals to work together, kind of cross-pollinate ideas. It also allows in a practice group for you to form teams that actually do work together. The reality is we all have our own practices, our own businesses. When you come into the collaborative process, teamwork is so important. So it all ties together. We're having those four professionals helping the family, and the professionals can then see if someone else has to be brought in. An appraiser is very common to be brought in. So those are things, those outside professionals are very welcome to come into the practice groups, and they should feel like they are part of the teams. They're going to get called on a regular basis because they are needed, and it doesn't necessarily add to the costs as opposed to litigation. Litigation, we still know, would be so much more expensive for the same process.
And why is litigation more expensive than collaborative? What's the where does the money go?
I actually was in a temp relief hearing, and the judge had the same question. So in the litigative process, between the attorneys themselves fighting over discovery and documents and process that doesn't belong to the parties, it belongs to the court system. And then the financial professionals that are involved and doing whatever we do, it just escalates, and it becomes a self-fulfilling negative prophecy here of high cost, high conflict, and in the end, the parties leave shattered messes. And there's very infrequent successful litigation where the parties feel really good about it. The reality is that in the collaborative process, people may not enjoy it, but it certainly doesn't harm families like the litigation process does.
And so if somebody is starting the divorce process and then they've learned about the collaborative process, where's the best way to find a collaborative professional? Tami, what's your opinion? How does someone find us or somebody else? What's the best way to get started?
Sure. So hopefully the starting point is if they've started the divorce process, they've met with an attorney, and as attorneys, we actually have an ethical obligation to discuss all of the process options that somebody has. So if they have never heard of collaborative before, their first introduction should be from their initial consultation with an attorney. In addition, it's up to us as attorneys, financial neutrals, neutral facilitators to spread the word. Hence, part of the reason you're doing this podcast. And I hope that everybody watching really gets something from this. So some of the places that you could go to are first, our practice group's website, which is pbacp.com, and that stands for the Palm Beach Academy of Collaborative Professionals. There we have a list of all the professionals who are members of our organization. Then you can go up from there. There's the FACP, the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Everybody who is a member of a practice group in Florida is also a member of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Thereafter, you can look at the IACP website, and that's the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. But we all use, how my husband Rick likes to say, the Google machine. So when you start to Google collaborative law or collaborative divorce, and you will be able to start your information gathering, your search, etc., to find out more about collaborative law and the collaborative law process. anybody watching this or interested could call any of the three of us, and I know, would all be happy to discuss the process choices involved. And the process choice that obviously the three of us really, really are passionate about is the collaborative process.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for joining. Rick, did you have any follow-up that you'd like to?
I was going to say the value of the practice groups in general is that it builds a camaraderie between professionals, and it helps us maintain the passion for this process. We know that litigation is damaging to the families that are going to go through it. And this out-of-court dispute resolution and collaborative process is absolutely the best for the families. And as professionals, once we gain that passion and get to share it with our fellow professionals that are familiar with it, it does snowball. And then we go out and we talk to other people about it. So I hope anyone watching this video today or the podcast or listening in learns more about it, finds their own passion, and then shares it with someone that, if it's not for them, for the next person they meet, that it might be a benefit to.
Thank you again. Thank you both for joining us on the FACP podcast.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
This podcast is a product of the Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals. Nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. If you or someone you know is looking for a qualified collaborative professional, please visit www.collaborativepracticeflorida.com and the Find Help button to locate a trained collaborative professional in your community. Thank you.